Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial I am going to be showing you another amazing product that I collaborated on with Gracefully Created. As you can see, we have two different patterns, sunflowers and peonies, and I will give you more details throughout the tutorial on how to get them and how they work. If you're following us on Instagram, you have probably already seen me mix a custom color matching this silver lilac paint. I went outside, tried to spray paint in the crazy wind that we are having, and come back in and mixed a perfect match with my COLORFLEX paints. I have promoted both COLORFLEX paints, which are from ARTISTRY Epoxy, and the CRYSTALAC company FLIPN Awesome paints in my tutorials in the past, so I'm just going to show you what I used to mix this color with both paint lines. I used steel gray and lilac from COLORFLEX and lavender and slate gray from FLIPN Awesome. And also, if you'll notice, I'm using the Lin from Design Lingo in the studio. That is the little wooden contraption I have holding my small paint or epoxy cups. I use this whenever I'm mixing my custom colors, as well as if I'm doing a multi-glitter cup. It really helps keeps things organized and super awesome for Milky Ways when you have lots of little cups of epoxy sitting around and you don't tip them over. So I will link that down below for y'all, as well as a discount code to snag one of those if you'd like. I'm just using a makeup brush. You can see it is Wet n Wild brand. I grabbed this from the it's a $1.25 store now. The bristles are just light and fluffy on this, so it helps you get really nice streak-free and even coverage. It only took one coat, and then I'm going in with my COLORFLEX glitter glue to apply our glitter. Now, I did start out with that same Wet n Wild makeup brush, but I did switch over to a little bit more firm brush. When applying my glitter glue, since it is a little thicker, I like using either a stiffer makeup brush or a thicker one, or I will use a 2-inch flat paintbrush. And then once I have full coverage of the glitter glue, I'm going to go over and just dump on Astrid from PDB Creative Studio. This is an opal glitter. It has a gorgeous color shift to it. You can use any opal glitter or cheat glitter, some may call it. This is a 0.015 cut, but of course the 0.008 will work as well. So I will list quite a few options down below for you. Some may just have a little bit different of a tint or a color shift to them, but we're not using any colored vinyl on this tumbler, so honestly anything will work and your results will still be beautiful. I allowed that glitter glue to dry for about 2 hours, sealed it with Rust-Oleum matte clear coat, and the reason that I seal even my solid glitters with a clear coat is because it really helps cut down on micro bubbles, and it also helps prevent having to add too many layers of epoxy to your tumbler. So I only applied one layer of Artistry's 1:1 ratio fast set. It's a thick viscosity, so it does go on thicker, and on top of my clear coat, I only had to do one coat with a little bit of sanding, as you can see, before I was able to add on my decals. Now, I will tell you that if you have any of these white back decals and they have any clear on them whatsoever, you will need to do another coat of epoxy. Make sure it is nice and slick, there's no scratch marks, and then you can apply them. In this case, this sheet did not have any clear on it at all, so I was super excited to be able to add on my decals after only just one layer of epoxy. They have white backs on them, so you cannot see the scratch marks through the decals, and as long as there's no clear edges, then you can just slap those right on. There's no particular rhyme or reason to how I am placing these on the tumbler. I'm just given about a 1/2 inch in between each of those decals. She does use removable vinyl, so it's really easy just to peel one off and pop it on in another spot. But that does not mean that they will not adhere to your tumbler really well. These really stick down, and even if you remove them a couple of times, you're not going to have any kind of worry whatsoever about them lifting while you are epoxying your tumbler. Each one of these sheets will do multiple tumblers. You will see later on in this tutorial where I bring in a 22-ounce cafe from the Steel Magnolia. So I will have used one sheet for a 32-ounce plump and a 22-ounce cafe from the Steel Magnolia. Of course, that will vary depending on the size of tumblers that you use, but you can most definitely get anywhere from 2 to 5 tumblers out of one single sheet, just depending on your design. We did add in some smaller florals on there, as well as the flourish elements. You see the little leaves and branches where you can do multiple different designs. You don't have to do this one in particular, and get as much use out of this single sheet as possible. And as you can see, as I'm working my way around the top and bottom rim of the tumbler, any excess that I trim off of the flowers, if it can be reused, I am putting that back down on my mat so I can use it on the next tumbler and avoid cutting up any more flowers. These actually have a matte and textured feel to them, so your epoxy really adheres to these, and you do not have to spray seal after you apply your decals. So as soon as I was finished with this, I went right in with a thin coat of Artistry's 1-to-1 fast set epoxy, so we will have that smooth slick surface before we do our power wash. Now, it has been insanely windy around here, and if it's not windy, it's raining or it's doing both. So what you are seeing is a little clip from one of my prior tutorials. I was a little upset that I was not able to go out and record doing this particular tumbler for y'all with the peonies, but then I thought, well, this is probably pretty nice because we also have the sunflower design, and this can give you an idea for placement. So I just made an oval with my power wash, and then I come in with my spray paint and did a light coat of that white. If it is too small, you can go back in with your power wash and extend the borders of that a bit. And then you just wash all of that off immediately, allow it to dry completely, and then you can clean up the rest of your tumbler if there's any overspray with some acetone or alcohol. Once you have that cleaned up, go in with another layer of epoxy. I just go super thin on my layers, and then you can add on your clear cast decal. This is also from Gracefully Created, and huge shout out to Brooke over at Kimmy Page Boutique for putting this image together for us so it will match perfectly. Now, if you just wanted to use the decal itself, that's totally fine. But if you want to put a border around it with #MomLife or someone's name, I'm going to show you how to do that. So I measured the little mom bun decal, and it's roughly 3 inches by 3.5 inches. So in Cricut Design Space, I created a circle and then put those dimensions in, and then I went back and got a square shape and just made it large enough to go around that oval. I just changed the color of it so I could actually see it on top of our rectangle. And then once I had those sizes the way that I wanted them, I moved the oval to the side, and I could have most definitely created an offset. If I did an offset, I would probably put it at 0.035, but instead I just duplicated the rectangle and then made the second one a hair bit smaller. I then highlighted them both and clicked slice to get that border edge that we are wanting. We didn't need one of those squares, so once it was sliced, I just pulled the image apart and deleted the ones that we didn't need. And then I added in a text and typed in #MomLife, which is what my customer would like, and just went to fonts. And then once you are in the font selection screen, you can actually select system fonts, and it will weed out all of those that you have to pay for. I very rarely use the fonts here on Cricut. I usually download them from Creative Fabrica. If you don't have a Creative Fabrica account, I will link that down below for y'all. They are doing a $1 special to sign up, and then you get access to thousands and thousands of fonts. After your first month, there is a small monthly fee, but there is absolutely no obligation. You can cancel at any time before your account renews. But just from my personal opinion, I use Creative Fabrica for almost all of my projects, whether it be fonts or images. Everything is free download if you have an account, and it saves me so much money from going to places like Etsy and other SVG download sites. So what I have done here is just took that remaining square. I took the size down just a tad, put it at the bottom, giving us enough room for our little phrase, and then sliced that once again, leaving that gap in our rectangle. So then I made sure that my placement was correct. So when I do cut it, it's going to cut correctly and I can place it directly over my decal. Lined it all back up, selected attach so the images will cut together, and then cut. I just cut it on some simple black. This is actually matte removable vinyl. I get the really large rolls from Hobby Lobby because I can use them for my peekaboos, and sometimes you just have to use a pretty simple traditional black instead of layering, so you don't take away from that really beautiful design that you already have. I just lined that up by standing the tumbler up and framing around my image. But if you are a little concerned about overlapping or putting that on crooked, you can put parchment paper in behind your decal and use the hinge method to apply so you can see your decal in behind there. Now, I've had a lot of requests for a tutorial on how to mix my Artistry fast set. So I'm going to show you how I personally mix my Artistry fast set epoxy. So first thing that I do is grab 2 mixing cups. I do not mix more than 60 milliliters of this epoxy at a time. I heat it up quite a bit, which will speed up the curing process, and it is already super fast. I poured 30 milliliters of each part in each cup. I allowed that to sit just for a couple of minutes because part A is thicker than part B. So whenever you first pump it, you may not notice that you have a little more or the other, and you need to allow that to settle down into your mixing cup. Once that has settled down and you made sure that you have exactly 30 milliliters of each, I took my heat gun and just twisted my cup around as that heat was blowing onto my part A. I do not heat part B. I only heat my part A, and then as I am heating it, I pour that into my part B cup. I take my Artistry stir stick, which is plastic, and it really helps avoid getting micro bubbles from using a wooden stir stick. So I mix that for just a minute or so in 1 cup, and then I pour back into the part A so that we can get any of that excess that may have been left behind in that cup. This is where a lot of mistakes happen because you don't realize truly how much gets left behind in that cup. So you end up with too much of one or the other. Make sure that you are stirring in the center, however, you are also scraping the edges and rubbing it off of the stir stick to make sure that you get every last bit mixed properly, and then just stir until your epoxy is clear. I would say in total it takes about 3 minutes. You want to make sure that it is mixed so you do not end up with tacky or sticky tumblers when they should be cured properly. I take that and apply it to my tumblers immediately. As you can see, there is very, very little to no bubbles whatsoever. So I take that, I apply directly to my tumblers, and then I very lightly brush over with a torch. If you mix like this, you are gonna have so little micro bubbles. A torch is hardly even necessary. I just really torch out of habit. And just in case there's a staggering little bubble in there somewhere that wants to be a pest, I go ahead and take care of it. As I mentioned, this epoxy does cure lightning fast. Within 45 minutes, you can add a second coat, and within an hour, in my environment, of course yours can be different, but my room temperature is 68 degrees, and within an hour, my cups are actually dry to the touch. My turners are turned off, and within 3 hours, I can actually remove these, clean them up, and take photos. You can also use this as a top coat. You can use it for every tumbler if you like. It is just a hair more costly, so whenever I have the chance and I'm not in a pinch, I do use Artistry's regular epoxy, which is also incredible, and they both have amazing shine. Once I finished the application, I brushed over that with a torch, and these were complete. Details for all of the items I used in this tutorial will be listed in the description below, along with some coupon codes, of course, and you can grab some of these florals as well as the sunflowers from GRACEFULLYCreatedCCD.com on Tuesday, March 29th, 2022 or after. I will link her group down below as well so that you can join and be notified the exact time they are released. Be sure that you are following us on Instagram and part of our Facebook group to be notified on any of the new and upcoming products, as well as giveaways. We have lots of those, and I cannot wait to give y'all some of all of these new items. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell in the corner to be notified anytime a new tutorial drops, and we will see you next time.